am an art director, and I also run St. Louis Design Week. These are my parents. That one's drawn by me, my dad, portrait. He's a graphic designer, and my mom is an illustrator. And they both kind of ran their own businesses for a while, so they worked from home, so that was super fun. So they got to be around me all the time. This is my house when I was growing up. A lot of Alvo Alto, a lot of mid-century modern inspiration, a lot of cats, as you can tell, a lot of found objects. Was any wall empty? No. Was any wall ever the same my whole childhood? No. We also loved Marimekko, who, if you don't know, it's amazing. We went to Target at 7 a.m. and waited in line for all this Marimekko stuff. I still have some of it, but everything in our house had a pattern. I had to fold the napkins by pattern. That was my chore. And because my dad was a graphic designer, I learned Adobe Illustrator when I was about 10, and I used Eric Carle and what's his face? Charles Harper. The amazing Charles Harper as inspiration, and I drew shapes. I drew a lot of shapes. And then when I got into high school, late high school, early college, because I knew Illustrator, I really went the other direction. I didn't want to be like my parents. I wanted to be the opposite, like everybody does. And so I did a lot of overly detailed, heavy, kind of wanted to stretch my technical skills, wanted to see how hard I could go. And I did that in physical media as well. My mom hates drawing. I know she's an illustrator, but she hates drawing. And my dad never showed me my drawings until later because that's actually really good. But I wanted to be like, hey, look, I can be like all the other artist kids. I can draw. And then we go to college, and I kind of unconsciously started going backwards. I started playing with pattern and conceptual work, screen printing. I started playing with shapes again. I don't think I would have ever admitted it at the time, but I was probably drawing inspiration from a lot of what my parents were doing. And then I swung a completely left turn, and I got a job as an exhibit designer. And I did stuff that had zero aesthetic that I was interested in because it's Hershey. Nobody designs like that except for Hershey. And I got to do a lot of other exhibits that were similar. I worked a lot with Anheuser-Busch. I worked with a lot of space museums for some reason. A lot of breweries. And so everything was like kind of working on different skill sets, but like not really having my voice in it a whole lot just because we were working with existing brands. And then I got to kind of, AIGA was where I kind of got to play and explore. So I worked with a bunch of other designers to kind of art direct this project, which had to be applicable to like all of the states that wanted to use it, but bold enough and identifiable enough that everyone could see it. And then when I started doing Design Week, I started going more into analog, which is kind of where how my parents worked, and like playing with letraset and playing with custom type and texture and things that were a little bit messier and like not as vector. I was like kind of getting away from that a little bit, but still kind of playing with some of the stuff. And now we're in this phase where like I'm kind of marrying all the things together, and I've given up on not being my parents. But this isn't the Pulitzer. If any of y'all saw this show, it was really cool. That was a fun project, but that was kind of, this is like me getting to do exhibit work that's actually in my style. At my day job, I do a lot of print design, which all of this is like my dad, and like he's so anal. Like he can spot something that's like a 16th of an inch off, and now I'm just as bad. So I actually think sometimes I'm worse than him, so I picked that up. Which was just great. And then I started getting back into letraset and like physical media and stuff that I grew up with. My parents had stacks and stacks and stacks of letraset they gave me, and I just started playing with it. My mom has stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of tissue paper, and so I just cut that up, and there's still tissue paper falling out of my pockets all the time. My dad was an art director when he was younger, so he's always had an eye for photography, and so it really kind of took another sharp left and this was my COVID hobby because I can't bake. And I don't like exercise, so we went out and took photos of flowers, and I ended up doing a show with Pocket Parks, which is a really awesome organization you should check out, and kind of got to be creative without doing the thing that I get paid to do. So there's a lot of pressure that gets taken off, but I found I was using a lot of skills I was kind of still using, and to my chagrin that my parents used. And then on the side, I was doing a lot of poster projects. There's a lot of poster shows, apparently, in the past 5 years. And so every year I do a poster. And they all somehow were illustrations. So then I was my mom again. And this is a literal side-by-side of this one's my mom's, that one's mine. We did these separately. We did not talk about this. And they were in an art auction together, and my co-organizer saw them and he was like, you and your mom kind of did the same thing. I was like, gosh, darn it. So that was my first realization. And this is my last story of a literal full circle. This is my mom's, and then that one on the left is mine. This one was on purpose. She did, St. Louis Christmas Carol Association had an album in the, I don't know, I'm gonna say 80s. I don't know when, maybe the 70s. I'm gonna keep going because this is a good story. Sorry, I'm gonna break the rules. But she did that album. They came back to her a couple years ago and asked her to do a new one. And she said, I don't want to, but maybe my daughter will. And I said yes. And they said, well, that's a really cool story. And so they had me reinterpret my mom's work in my style. And so it was a real, literal, full circle that now I've just fully embraced that I am every part of them creatively, and that was the perfect example.